Good morning.
Good morning.
And as was said already, happy Sabbath. And it's a pleasure to be able to continue and to pick up from where we left off and to look at these very important topics. And now we're going to be looking at a new heart. Now, last night we were talking about the old heart. And it was kind of a not so good picture about how we are. It really last night was the Laodicean message. You think you are rich and increased with goods and have need of nothing, but you know not that you are wretched, miserable, poor, blind, and naked. And so I think we kind of got a little bit of a picture of that last night. And then there in Revelation chapter 3, we are told that we need to come and we need to obtain some things, right? There's gold, right? There is white raiment, and there is eye salve that we need. And so that's going to be represented in a new heart. Now, can you, when we look at the new heart, we will ask a few questions. First of all, can you give first or must you take first? All right, you have to take first because you can't give what you don't have. So you've got to take first in order to have something, in order to be able to give. And so that is true throughout all of creation. Does the seed first give to the ground or take from the ground? It takes from the ground, right? It takes of the water, it takes of the nutrients, it takes of the electricity. There's an electrical impulse that happens at germination. It takes of all of these different things, and it breaks through the ground, and it takes of the sunlight, it takes of the carbon dioxide, and so on. And it gives oxygen, and it gives, it moves the dirt around. It helps in a symbiotic relationship with other microbes that are in the ground, and so on and so forth. And so it takes and it gives. Now, as it grows to be big, maybe, this happened in Florida, and it turns into an orange tree. And so then the orange tree produces oranges. For whom does the orange tree produce the oranges? All right, not for itself, right? It doesn't produce its fruit for itself. An orange tree has never eaten its own oranges. It can't put its roots into its own oranges. It can't supply itself by its own product. Its product is for something or someone else. Now, you might say that, okay, well, it can benefit from those oranges because they can fall to the ground and become part of the ground, but it can't do that until it goes through some other things first, right? You don't just have oranges that fall into the ground and all of a sudden become ground. They have to go through something else. So something else takes it in and puts something else out, and then something else takes it in and puts something else out, and then it becomes part of the nutrients in the ground. So the plants come and they take from the soil, and in this case, to produce a flower that has pollen in it. And the bee comes along to take of the pollen so that it can give honey. So the bear can come along and take of that honey and give some dung. So the dung beetle can come along and take of that dung so it can give something to the worm. And the worm takes of that something and gives back to the ground, and so on. So everything in nature takes to give. Everything takes from something else around it and then gives to other things as well. So all things in nature are channels of resources to bless others, right? Looking unto Jesus, we see that it is the glory of our God to give. I do nothing of myself. I seek not mine own glory, but the glory of him that sent me. In these words is set forth the great principle, which is the law of life for the universe. All things Christ received from God, but he took to give. That's right, he took to give. So even Christ operates by that law, that fundamental law of all nature. All things Christ received from God, but he took to give. So in the heavenly courts, in his ministry for all created beings, through the beloved Son, the Father's life flows out to all. And through the Son, it returns in praise and joyous service, a tide of love to the great source of all. And thus, through Christ, the circuit of beneficence is complete, representing the character of the great giver, the law of life. Right? So if we visualize in a human context what is going on here, God is a complete closed circuit, right? And he exists in and of himself, and he needs nothing else. He existed forever before he created the first creature or the first whatever. Because he existed in eternity past, and he exists in eternity future, and so on. And so God exists in and of himself, complete, without the need for anything else. But God has created creatures, and the creatures, through Christ, you have the Father, and then through Christ, the Father's power and love and so on flows out to others, and then you have all of the creatures that are created that are segments of the loop. Right? They're segments of the loop, channels where they have input in one side and output on the other side, and then input and output, input and output, input and output. And you have all of those little segments that come together, and then through Christ comes back to the Father, and it creates a whole circuit too. So you and I are not the circuit, but we're integral as part of the circuit. Those little segments of extending God's love to others. And so we function as those channels in that circuit. And the larger the channel we can be, the more blessing and the more joy and so on. So we looked at the heart last night, and we saw that the heart makes its decisions. It evaluates things based upon gain and loss. And we were created so that we would always go for gain, and we would always avoid loss. And of course, we saw last night that we got a little messed up at the tree of knowledge of good and evil. And when Eve believed the lies of the enemy and Adam followed her along in those lies, then you and I and everyone who's born to Adam and Eve have been born into those lies. And not only, again, do we inherit the DNA from Adam and Eve, but we inherit spirit from mother and father as well. And so since they had an upside-down, backward spirit that saw things from the wrong perspective, and the gains and losses were upside down, then you and I are born into an upside-down situation where we're born into seeing things from the wrong perspective, having it the wrong way, and then responding to things the wrong way because we perceive it the wrong way. Now, how did God create Adam and Eve in the first place before this took place? That's what we're going to look at now. So God created Adam and Eve. He created humanity with that heart, which evaluates things based upon gain and loss, where you and I always say yes to gain, we say no to loss. And there are expectations in the new heart, and we'll talk about that, what that looks like, because it's different than the expectations that you and I have now. Divine love, last time we looked at human love, and human love does what? Human love gives in order to receive. That's right. Human love gives in order to receive. But divine love does not work that way. Divine love works opposite to that. Divine love, in a human or a creature context, takes to give. Right? Divine love takes to give. Now, God himself does not need to do any taking. He's the creator, and so he can just create and give. So for God's standpoint, divine love is giving. For us as creatures, in order to be a part of the circuit, we have to first take in order to be able to give. So for us, it is taking to give. And that is not an investment. It's not putting a value, something of value in someone or something else in order to get value back out of it. It's putting value in it because it is valuable to give it value. It's not an investment, it's a gift, right? It's a gift. And indeed, in divine love, it is gifts, and gifts come without strings attached. Now, if your love is taking to give, then what is your gain? If your love is taking to give, then what is your gain? All right? Well, you got to have the taking, right? In the old heart, when you were giving in order to receive, what was your gain? Receiving, that's right. So the objective of the giving was to receive. So now when you take to give, what's the objective of the taking? To give. That's right. So your gain is actually the giving. And the more you can give, the more gain you have. Right? The more you can give, the more gain you have. Now, you might not give as much, you might give less, but if you give less, it's for their sake, not for yours. For example, you might have somebody whom you want to give more to, but they'll only accept a little bit. Who do we say the guy's name was? Jake? Coming knocking at the door, giving the $20 bill, or coming and knocking at the door and giving the suitcase. Well, some people might only accept the $20 bill, so all you can give them is the $20 bill. They won't accept the suitcase full of money. Okay, so you can't give them away the suitcase full of money, but that's because they're limiting your giving, not because you're limiting the giving. Or if you have somebody, let's say, for instance, you've got friends or family member that's into drugs and alcohol and that kind of stuff, and you know that pretty much every penny that passes through their hands goes into something of that damaging nature. And so if you had $1 million that you would love to give to them, well, for their sake, you wouldn't. Because you know that would turn into $1 million of drugs and alcohol, and they would probably kill themselves and others along the way. So for their sake, you might limit the giving, but not for your sake. All right? Because your joy comes in the giving, and it's your joy to give more and more and more. Right? So here's a little story that the Lord gave me one morning when I was having my talk time with the Lord and out walking around. It was one of those divine downloads. You know, I love having that time with the Lord because He speaks to me, He teaches me things. And when I have my talk time with the Lord in the morning, and this morning, I don't remember, it's a little while ago, I was having that prayer time, and all of a sudden this analogy came to my mind, this story came to my mind, and I was like, and it started building while I was walking, and the whole thing of it, and I realized, hang on, I need to write this thing down now. And so I cut my prayer time short, came inside, got the computer, and started typing. And I could hardly type fast enough to keep up, with the storyline as it was coming. And it was, sometimes I've got to sit down and I've got to labor for a long time and think through things and figure out how to say this or say that. This was just something that just came shooting out. And it highlights this whole principle of taking to give. So imagine with me, this is the Great Opportunity Department Store. So imagine with me that one day they start construction on a store that's near here. And that store is absolutely huge. I mean, it is so big, the footprint of that building is actually miles. Right? And it has everything that you could possibly imagine. It's got like Walmart and Home Depot and the whole mall, and it's got, every car dealer that you can think of and all of that kind of stuff. Anything that you can think of from a retail or wholesale type of standpoint, it's there. And you don't have shopping carts, you have shopping cars. Because, it's, or shopping trucks or whatever. And you can go get anything you want, and it has such buying power because it's so big, it can get things for really good prices. And so you get Macy's quality for Walmart pricing. And so, life is great. And so you love going there and shopping and getting all of the different things that you need. And one day you're there shopping and you're checking out, and the clerk has got your items, and they're blip, 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 and you're doing this thing. Forgot your wallet, you know. And while you're doing that, the manager walks up to you and says, looks like you left your wallet at home. Say, yeah, I'm sorry. Is it okay if I leave the stuff aside, go home, grab my wallet, come back and pay for it? Says, no, don't worry about it. He hands you a store card and he says, here, you can use this anytime you need to. Then he hands it to the clerk and they take it, they swipe it, hand you your receipt, and you got your goods, you're good to go. Like, oh. And so you turn to thank him, but he's gone and he's dealing with something else and whatever. And you walk out with your stuff and you're just like, that's quite odd. And, so you come back and you shop like you normally do. And another day, who knows, maybe it's a few months later, you're doing the same thing. You're like, oh, man. And, oh, you got the store card. Not sure if I should. But he said you can use it anytime you need to. All right, so you hand it to the clerk and they take it, swipe it, hand you your receipt, you got your goods, you're ready to go. And as you're walking out, you kind of get the manager's there dealing with somebody else, and he looks up at you while you're walking by, and it's kind of that look like, he knows what you just did, and he gave you a look that said, that's okay. And, and so you walk out and your head's kind of spinning a little bit, and you're like, really? And hang on, they never asked for my name, they never asked my address, they never asked for anything. I didn't get a bill from the last thing. They couldn't even give me a bill. And so, now you're back shopping again later, and now you've got your store card and the credit card. Store card, credit card, store card, credit card. And you hand them the store card. And they take it and they swipe it and hand you your receipt and your goods, you're good to go. And you're just like, whoa, this is too good to be true. Wow, this is amazing. And you're thinking about all the possibilities while you're driving along and you don't pay attention to that red thing up there and you go through and Now you're okay and they're okay, it's fender bender and so on, but airbags went and so on. It looks like the car is pretty much totaled. And it was an older car and you needed a new one anyways, but now's not a good time. And so you're trying to figure it out. Now you got another thing to figure out. And you end up back at the Great Opportunity Department Store, driving around in there, and you happen to buy a department that you hadn't paid attention to before. It's the auto department. And so you go turn into there, and you go check things out, and they've got every make model that you can possibly think of. And there's no high-pressure salesman. The whole price of the vehicle, tax tag and title is right there on the window. And they've got all the options that you could possibly want. And so you go, and so you're like, okay, well, I think I want this one. And they're like, well, we've got an insurance department too, and we can insure it for several $100s less every 6 months than your insurance company. We can beat everyone out there. And so you start looking at it, you're like, you check it out, and indeed, it's a lot cheaper. And so you decide to insure with them, and it's time to pay. And you take out the store card, and you hand them the store card, and they take it, and they swipe it, and they give you all of your, your receipts and everything, and your documents and all that stuff, and you're good to go. And life is just beautiful, just beautiful. And so you're driving around town, and you happen to be in a busy part of downtown, and downtown sometimes lights are long, and the light is long, and there's this woman over here, and she's got a cardboard sign, it says, need help, God bless, or something like that. And so, you try not to maintain eye contact and so on, and then you remember, the store card. And so you roll down the window and you have her come over, and she comes over and you tell her, hey, I'm going to take you shopping. We'll get anything you need. She's like, okay. So she gets in the vehicle, and so you go drive off to the Great Opportunity Department Store. And as you're driving, you get her story. You find out that, she was married. She has 3 children. And they're in daycare and school right now. They're living in the shelter downtown. Her husband got sick, and it was a prolonged illness, and they didn't have insurance, and they lost the home, and they lost everything. And here she is without career skills or anything like that, with 3 children now in a shelter and no clue how to get out of this situation. And so you feel for her. So you take her to the store and you say, get anything you want. Get anything you want, I'll get it for you. Well, she doesn't want to presume upon your generosity, and so she gets stuff for the children here and that there, practical things, and so on. And so you go take her, and you check out, and you pay for it with the store card, and they hand you the receipt, and you're walking out with her, and the manager happens to be standing out front, and he watches you walk by, and he gives you that glance like he knows what you did, and there's this big smile on his face, right? Oh. So you walk out and you take her back to the shelter and you drop her off there, and she's just grateful for, you're helping her out and so on. And so for the next few days, you just can't get her off your mind. And her situation, and how can you help her out, and how can you get her out of that? And you find yourself back at the Great Opportunity Department Store, driving around again, and you see another department you hadn't paid attention to before. It was the real estate department. And so all right. And the power the power light is flashing. So that might mean battery. So I'll stand here while we do the battery thing. All right, so, oh yeah, feedback. All right, let me turn that off. All right, so, so you turn into the real estate department, and there, you look around, they've got commercial properties, they've got, they've got residential properties, they got all sorts of stuff all over the place. And you go and you can't go far, it's tucked in. You look and you tell them the situation about what's going on with the woman, and they say, well, hey, we can get things in your name, and then you can bring her in later and we can get it switched over into her name. And, we got inroads with the State Department and all that stuff. And so, we can make this work. And you say that she's a single mom with, test. All right. She's a single mom with 3 children. Well, what about a 4-bedroom home? Maybe 2-story on the end of a cul-de-sac so there's no traffic. Maybe a 1-acre lot. It's, enough for the kids to play, but not too much for her to take care of, and so on. Yeah, that'd be great. And so you check it out, and yeah, they've got it. And you buy it with a store card. That's right. So you buy it with the store card. Now, how's she going to get there? Oh, so you got to go back to the auto department, right? And so you go looking for a car for a single woman with 3 children. And how about a minivan? Make it leather seats, because they're going to make a mess, and you can wipe it up, and it'll be easy to wipe up, and so on. And so you go and you get the car. And they can do the same thing. Get it in your name now and come back and bring her, and you can get it switched over into her name later. And so you do. You get that ordered, and you have it delivered off to the new address. But the home's empty. The home's empty. So what do? Yeah, well, they've got a decorating department. So you go there and you check them out, and they've got an associate, and they say, well, hey, we can go meet you at the house. We can do a walkthrough, figure out all the different things that you need, and put all the orders and everything together. And then when you pay for it, we can start sending people out. And so you meet them out there at the new home, and you do a walkthrough, and they're like, okay, well, what about a welcome wreath on the door and a welcome mat on the floor? And you come inside, and how about some paintings on the walls here? And how about this dining room set here? And this living room set here, and and these appliances, and these silverware, and these dishes, and all that kind of stuff, and this bedroom set, and that bedroom set, and how about a playground in the back for the kids? Oh yeah, they'd love it. Oh, great. And so, you get all this stuff arranged and ordered, and you go back to the store and you pay for it all with With a store card, that's right. And after it's paid for, then trucks and people start moving out there and they make sure that it all gets set up in the right place and so on. A few days later, everything's set, everything's ready. Big red bow on the house, big bow on the vehicle, and you go back to the shelter. And there she is, and her kids are with her this time. And you tell her, all right, hey, I'm going to take you guys shopping again. Let's go shopping. So you take her back to the Great Opportunity Department Store, and this time you got the kids with you. And so, you tell them, get anything you want. And they're like, woohoo, they're going to get this, that, and the other thing. And she's trying to keep them under control and keep them from presuming on your generosity. And they'll take the whole store if they could. And, and so you walk out with a bigger load of stuff than you did the first time, and you start driving back with them, except you go a different way. And she says, oh, are you going to your home? And you say, no. And you're driving through a neighborhood, and she says, you ask her, do you like the neighborhood? And she says, yeah, it looks nice, looks safe, and so on. And you turn on this road, and it's a dead-end road, and you get to the very end of it, and you pull in front of a house that has a bow on it, everything. And you stop there, and you turn to her, and you say, welcome home. And she looks at you like, what are you talking about? And you tell her, I got this for you. I got the house and the car. It's for you. And you hand her the keys. And as the reality of the situation kind of bursts upon her, she bursts too, and start crying and whatever, and she hits the button on the vehicle key thing, and then the doors come open, the kids run over there and climb through it and look through that, and then they go up to the front door and use the key and open it up, and they open it up, and it's furnished, it's fully furnished, and it's all brand new carpets, new walls, new furniture, new everything. And she just walked, the kids see the sliding glass door, and through it is the playground, and they're like, boom. They're out there and they're swinging and doing all that kind of stuff. And she's just wandering from room to room, laughing and crying, and can't believe that it's true. How much did it cost you? 0. Yeah, 0. Didn't cost you a thing, right? Everything came from the Great Opportunity Department Store. The Great Opportunity Department Store. The God store, right? Came from the God store. It's all free. Doesn't cost you anything. But you get the joy of going and taking everything you need so that you can give it away, right? And it gave you joy, gave you meaning, gave you purpose to be able to take her shopping and get the few things that she would accept, right? She didn't want to presume on your generosity, so you could only give her a little because she'd only take a little. But when you went with the children, the children were going to take more, and so you were able to give more because they were willing to take more. But what was better, taking her shopping or getting her the house and the car? Yeah, the house and the car. There's so much more joy in being able to do that. Why? Because the more you can give, the more gain you have, right? The more you give, the more gain you have. You can give less, but if you give less, it's for them. The only time you lose is when you start keeping stuff for yourself. Imagine you went to the store and you figured this out. You got the store card. You can get anything you want. And so you go back there and you're like, oh, you find the real estate department and you're like, oh, look, there's a mansion over there. I want that. Let's pay for that. Oh, and there's another one in this side of town. Okay, I want that too. And there's the aquatics department. I can get a boat and I can get some ski-doos. And here's the outdoor department. So let me get some camping equipment and let me get a few snowmobiles and you just accumulate and accumulate and accumulate and accumulate. What's your life like in a few years? Absolutely miserable. Absolutely miserable. Because we were not created to take and keep. We weren't. And when we take and keep, it kills us. We were created to take, to give. And it's only when we're in that process of taking to give that we have that meaning, that purpose, that joy that God intended for us in life, right? So the new heart under divine love takes to give. And the joy comes in the giving. Now, what are you going to do for her now? Take her back to the store so she can meet the manager, right? Take her back to the store so that she can meet Jesus Christos, right? Jesus Christos, the store manager, right? So that she can get her own card. That's right. So she can get her own card. And she's not dependent upon you for the rest of her life. She then becomes dependent upon him. And she takes from him. And what's she going to do with that card? Yeah, she's going to think about all those other women and those children that are in the shelter and their situation. And she's going to start taking so that she can give to set them free too. Welcome to what Christianity was supposed to be, right? This is what Christianity was supposed to be, and it's exciting. It is, it's exciting to be able to take from the source and then to give away to others. So, in this heart, do you need acceptance? Yeah. You need acceptance. Where do you go for acceptance? God, right? Because he's the source. In this heart, do you need belonging? Yes. Where do you go for belonging? Go to God. He's the source of it. You come and you take from him, right? And then you give it away to others. Jesus said in John 12:25, says, "He who loves his life will lose it, and he who hates his life in this world will keep it for eternal life." What is he saying here? Well, Jesus, as he typically did, he is iterating a divine law. He's showing us how things actually function. And how things actually function now in this world, I'll back up and this is common, how we believe things function. How do we keep something in this world? Yeah, you lock it up. You put it in the bank. You hide it from others. Somewhere where somebody doesn't know where it is and so on. You hold on to it. You hoard it. That's how you keep something in this world. But Jesus is telling us, you're crazy. You're crazy. Because in reality, the only way you can keep something is if you give it away. The only way you can keep something is if you give it away. For the moment you hold on to it, you lose it. Right? That's what he's saying here. The moment you hold on to it, you lose it. The only way you can keep it is to give it away. Right? So, do you need acceptance? Sure, come. Take all the acceptance you need. You want it to remain yours, what must you do? Give it away. Accept others. For the moment that you refuse to accept them, you lose the acceptance. Right? You need belonging? Sure, come to God. Take all the belonging you need. You want it to remain yours? Give it away, right? Be a place of belonging for others. For the moment you become the place of rejection, you lose the belonging that you had, right? That's just a divine law, right? And is God going to lose? No. So he doesn't keep stuff to himself. No matter what you're like, he gives, right? He makes his sun rise on the evil and on the good and sends rain on the just and the unjust. He has blessings that he gives to everyone regardless of what they're like and regardless of what they'll do with the gift, because that's who he is. That's what he's like. That's his character. He's not going to lose, so he's going to keep on giving. Right? So, everything you need must be taken vertically. All right, everything you need must be taken vertically. We come to God for the taking. And then, everything on a horizontal level, right, other relationships, that's all for the giving. That's right. It's all for the giving. I asked, was it last night, I think? Are you an eater or a feeder? Are you an eater or are you a feeder? Right? Now, when you come to God, the intention is that you are an eater. That's right. So that you're an eater. When you come to God, that is the purpose of the relationship with God, is that you might come and eat Him. He is food. He is water, right? He is the air that we breathe, right? He is what we come to take and we sustain ourselves from. But then when it comes to every other relationship that we have, every other relationship is not for us to take from, it's for us to give to. Right? It's to give to. So, and when your motive and your purpose is to give to and not to take from others, then they're downstream from you, not upstream. And remember, if they're downstream, they can develop the industry, they can suck all the water out of the river, they can muck it up and let it all go downstream. It doesn't directly affect you. You're not controlled by them because they're not upstream. But if they're upstream and they're bad and they make the river all murky and dirty and all that kind of stuff, then that's what you get. So the law of God shows us that we are to take from Him and we're to take from Him only, and every other relationship is for us to give to, so that we're dependent upon Him and Him only, and we're not dependent upon others. We are dependent upon Him. Others are for us to give to, for us to bless, for us to benefit, to have the joy of being that channel. But it's not for us to be a slave to them, to be controlled by them, and for our lives to be manipulated by how they think and what they feel and how they respond and all that kind of stuff. That's only with God, and He's the same, and He never changes. Right? So you need acceptance, come take it. You want it to remain yours, give it away. You need harmony, come and take it. You need it to remain yours, be harmonious with others. You need security, come and take all the security you need. You want security to remain yours, be a place of security for others. You want forgiveness, come, take all the forgiveness that you need. You want forgiveness to remain yours? Give it away. That's right, give it away. You see, Jesus said in Matthew 6:15, if you do not forgive men their trespasses, neither will your Father forgive your trespasses. I tell you, we look at things from our own perspective, and we read into things that really aren't there because of our own perspective. And so here's one of the ways that I used to read into this particular passage. If you don't forgive them, I'm not going to forgive you. That's how I used to read it, So if you understand things from that standpoint, and then you become a parent, what do you do to your children? Yeah, you pass it on. So one child is the aggressor to another child. And so you come behind them and you do to the one that did to the other what they did to the other, so that they can understand what it's like to have it done to them. So if the one slapped the other one over the back of the head, you go up to him and you say, don't do that. Boom. See how that feels? So you just become the bigger aggressor and doing the same bad things to them that you don't want them to do to somebody else, and you just perpetuate the evil that you're trying to stop. And I used to think God was like that. He's just the bigger, meaner ogre, and so if I don't forgive, then He's going to turn right around and slap me on the back of the head like I didn't forgive them and slap them on the back of the head. And He's just the big one, and so He gets the last slap. But that's not what it's saying. He's simply reiterating the law, and that is, if you hold it to yourself, you lose it. The only way you can keep it is if you give it away. So come on, don't hold it to yourself. Give it away. All right, come, take all the forgiveness you need, but then give it away and forgive others. All right? Now, in this heart, would I expect my wife to love me? Yes. For whose sake? For her sake. For her sake. Because she's not my source, right? She's not my source. I don't go to her as my source. I go to God as my source. I get everything that I need from Him. But she's coming to God as well. But what is the purpose of life? It's not just the taking, it's the giving, right? And so I have joy in being able to give love to my wife and to give acceptance and belonging and so on and so forth. And the marriage relationship, there's a way that you can give and a depth of giving that is in no other relationship that more closely resembles the relationship God wants to have with us than any other relationship that's out there. And so it's our joy to be able to take from God and to give to each other and to build each other up, to be the helpmate, right? The helpmate, and so on. And so it's the purpose from both sides for that to happen. Take from God, give to wife. Take from God, give to husband, and so on. And so in that purpose, I know that if she would withhold love from me, who would it hurt? Her. It would hurt her. Because she can only have that meaning, that joy, that purpose, if she continues to be the channel of that love and grace to others. And if she would withhold it and stop it up, it would kill her. And I don't want her to die. So for her sake, yes, I expect her to love me. But if she stops loving me, I don't fall apart for my sake. Do I hurt for her? Yeah, sure. Do I pray for her? Yeah. Do I yearn for her? Sure. I want her to have that life, that meaning, that purpose, and so on. But I don't die for myself. And if she ends up walking away and saying, I don't want any more of this, and so on, I don't fall apart for me. Now, I hurt for her, but I don't fall apart for me because it's not about me. Because I can still be connected to my source and I can still be secure. And full. Right? This heart recognizes it's not mine. It's not mine. I'm not the owner, right? I don't possess anything. I can't produce anything. I'm not the creator. And I'm not even mine to do whatever I want to with me. Right? I'm not my own. Now, we talked about a relationship scenario last time in the selfish human heart, and the selfish human heart can look like the gates of heaven on one side and the pit of hell on the other side. That early dating relationship where everything's going well and wonderful and everybody's giving to receive and everybody's receiving and life is just wonderful and you're on cloud nine and everything is pink and lovely and nothing can go wrong. Oh, it's just so beautiful, and it's still all out of selfishness, all out of pride, all with me in the place of God, and it can all lead to absolutely not a single bit of salvation with any of it, but it seems so wonderful. And on the other side, with the fear and the threats and the abuse and all of that kind of stuff to control somebody else, it looks like the pit of hell, and it's all the same heart. And sometimes we get the idea that Christianity is simply a process of getting better in that old heart. Going from the bad side of selfishness and control and manipulation to the good side of selfish control and manipulation and so on. That's not Christianity. Christianity is something entirely different. It's not an improvement of the old heart. It's a new heart entirely. Right? And so here, let's just run through an imaginary scenario because I have never seen this in reality. But this was probably Adam and Eve before sin happened. So you've got a young man, young woman, both of them are connected to God. They take from Him and they're giving to others. And their life comes from taking to give and taking to give. And so they happen to run into each other at some point. And just like usual, they take from God and they give to others. And God taps them on the shoulder and says, I want you to give more to her. Oh, great. I love giving more. Giving more is wonderful. And so he does. And God taps her on the shoulder and says, I want you to give more to him. And she's like, well, hey, great. I love giving more. And so we do. And God says, I got a plan for you guys. So keep just giving more and more to each other. Oh, that's wonderful. Take more from God. Give more to each other. And finally, God says, I want you to do this for the rest of your life. I've got a plan for you guys. Oh, that's wonderful. We get to take and give for the rest of our lives. This is great. And so maybe, he talks to him at one point and says, I want you to give to her for the rest of your life. And he says, well, that's great, but you got to convince her. Don't worry, got it covered. And, he says, well, he's going to, God talks to her and says, well, he's going to come ask you the question. And the obvious answer is yes, that's my plan for your life. And so he comes and he asked her, says, God told me I need to give to you for the rest of my life. And she said, well, God was telling me the same thing. Well, great. What do you do now? Get married, that's right. There's no need for a long, engagement or anything like that, in this situation. So yeah, you get married. And what doesn't happen after marriage? Yeah, everything doesn't go in reverse like it normally does, right? Because you weren't fishing. You weren't doing any of that kind of stuff. You're just taking from your source and giving to others and taking from your source and giving to others, and you happen to give to them, and God wanted you to do so, and it was your joy and so on to do so. And so when you get married, guess what? You still have your source, and you still take from him, and you still give to others. Now, maybe, this is a hypothetical situation, maybe God tells him, I need you to go over into this mission field for a few years. And I need you to stay back at the home field while he's gone. This is a hypothetical situation, right? Right. So maybe he says that. And so, do they fall apart while they're apart? No. Do they miss each other like we miss each other now? They do miss, but they don't miss for the same reasons. We miss somebody because of what we lack in receiving. That's why we miss others. We miss what we might receive from them. So when somebody dies, when somebody rejects us, when they walk away, when we're at long distance and we cannot continue to receive from them, then we miss the receiving. That's what we miss about somebody when we're away from them now. This couple, they would not miss each other for the receiving. What do they miss each other for? The giving. They miss each other for the giving because they don't have the opportunity to give to each other in that same way and in that same depth to each other. And so there's a longing to come back together again to be able to give like that again. But they have their source. And they are complete with that source, and they can take from God and give to others around them. And when that time is over, they come back together, and they can enter right back into the giving where they left off when they were gone. It's an entirely different life. It's an entirely different way of living. And it's hard for us to wrap our minds around it because, well, it's so foreign to how we have ever lived. But it's what God intended for us, and it's what he's looking at restoring us to. Is a selfless love and a selfless relationship with others. And that comes from taking from him and giving to others. Now, who was the perfect example of this new heart? Jesus. So, did Jesus possess a whole lot on his own? No. Sorry, here you go. But there's a little bit more to it, So did he possess a whole lot on his own? The answer is no. He says the foxes have holes, the birds of the air have nests, but the Son of Man has nowhere to lay his head. He didn't lay claim to any possession. Did he produce a whole lot on his own? No. He said, I can of myself do nothing. It's incredible what you can do when you can't do anything. And it's equally incredible what you will never accomplish if you think you can do it. Yeah. And did he think that he was his own to do whatever he wanted to with himself? No. He said, most assuredly, I say to you, the Son can do nothing of himself but what he sees the Father do, for whatever he does, the Son does in like manner. So Jesus was the perfect UPS delivery guy, taking love from his Father and giving that love to others. And if others took that love and they got it and they threw it on the ground, they stomped on it and they walked away, did he take it personally? No, he didn't take it personally. He didn't hurt for himself. Did he hurt? Yes, he did. Who did he hurt for? For them. For the ones that were rejecting love, that were rejecting life, that were choosing death and darkness instead. Yeah, he hurt for them, but he didn't hurt for himself. And I'll tell you this, hurting for others will never hurt you. Let me rephrase that. Hurting for others will never harm you. But hurting for yourself will kill you. Right? So it's not harmful to hurt. But it's if you hurt for others. It's harmful if you hurt for self, because that's motivated from selfishness. And selfishness will always kill you, always destroy you. Right? So he didn't possess, he didn't produce, he wasn't his own. He was the ultimate UPS delivery guy. So let's take a look briefly at what that heart of love looks like in the life of Jesus and how it responds when it's in test and trial. So here's Desire of Ages, page 89. I think this is in the chapter Days of Conflict, when Jesus was a youth. Child. Jesus did not contend for his rights. Often his work was made unnecessarily severe because he was willing and uncomplaining. Right? So it's obvious Jesus was not an American because he was not contending for his rights. And he was not really like us because have you ever had somebody that tried to unnecessarily, meaning on purpose, and to make life really hard, made things unnecessarily severe? Yeah. How'd you respond? If you didn't have power to do anything about it, you just have a smoke trail going off your head. You'll do it. You'll get it done. But it's only under protest. And if you have power to do something about it, you might do something about it. I'm not doing that. You're not taking advantage of me like that. What did he do? He was willing and uncomplaining. That's the new heart. That's the character that God desires for us, is one that is willing and uncomplaining under unnecessary severity. Yet, did he go with the little smoke trail coming out of his head? No. He did not fail nor become discouraged. He wasn't discouraged at all. Why? Because he wasn't eating from their buffet. He was eating from the Father's buffet. And he took all the good that the Father had. Right? And his Father is not discouraged. He lived above these difficulties as if in the light of God's countenance. He did not retaliate when roughly used, but bore insult patiently. How much patience does love have? Infinite patience. That's right. It can put up with anything forever and never become impatient. Sin will not be eradicated because God finally gets fed up with it. Now, God could live with sin in existence forever. He could. As far as he's concerned, he could live with sin in existence forever because sin is not a threat to love, because sin is infinitely less powerful than love is. He is going to eliminate sin for its own sake, not for his sake. He will eliminate those in whom sin has been cherished for their sake, not for his sake. Right? In the heart of Christ, where reigned perfect harmony with God, there was perfect peace. He was never elated by applause, nor dejected by censure or disappointment. Why? You couldn't butter him up and you couldn't tear him down because he wasn't eating off of your buffet. He was eating off of the Father's. And the Father neither buttered him up nor tore him down. Father simply spoke the truth of him. This is my Son whom I love. With him I'm well pleased. Right? And that was always in his ears. Amid the greatest opposition and the most cruel treatment, he was still of good courage. Oh, beautiful. Thoughts from the Mount of Blessings, page 15. The Savior's life on earth, though lived in the midst of conflict, was a life of peace. Oh, wouldn't that be nice? You're not extracted from the conflict, you're in the conflict, but you got peace while you're in the middle of the conflict. Yeah. While angry enemies were constantly pursuing him, he said, "He that sent me is with me. The Father hath not left me alone, for I do always those things that please him." No storm of human or satanic wrath could disturb the calm of that perfect communion with God. Nothing could. Now, did he come as an anomaly? I mean, he was an anomaly. But did he come to remain the only anomaly? No. He came to show us the way and to give us power to enter into the same way, so that you and I, by the grace of God, can come to the same place where we can respond the same way when confronted with the same trials and the same tests. Right? And indeed, if anybody wants to be a part of the 144,000, that's where we got to go. Because the great revelation of the love of God and the redemption, the power of his redemption to save man from sin, will be made through individuals who had been rebels and sinners and completely against God, saved by his grace out of that to the point where you can torture them. And they will only respond with love in return. Just like Jesus. He was now in the shadow of the cross, and pain was torturing his heart. He knew he would be deserted in the hour of his betrayal. He knew that by the most humiliating process to which criminals were subjected, he would be put to death. He knew the ingratitude and cruelty of those he had come to save. He knew how great the sacrifice that he must make, and for how many it would be in vain. Knowing all that was before him, he might naturally have been overwhelmed with the thought of his own humiliation and suffering. So here he is in the Garden of Gethsemane, the weight of sin being pressed upon him, those sweat drops of blood coming out, and so on. And what was Jesus thinking in those moments? Praise God for Desire of Ages. I love this book. But he looked upon the 12 who had been with him as his own, and who after his shame and sorrow and painful usage were over, would be left to struggle in the world. His thoughts of what he himself must suffer were ever connected with his disciples. He did not think of himself. His care for them was uppermost in his mind. Even when he became sin for us, he was not thinking of himself. It was still selfless love for the good and the benefit of others. Right? I hate this quote. You'll understand why in just a minute. But I love it too. Christ never murmured. Oops. Never uttered discontent, displeasure, or resentment. Oops, oops, oops. He was never disheartened, discouraged, ruffled, or fretted. Oops, 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 oops. No. He was patient, calm, and self-possessed under the most exciting and trying circumstances. Oops, oops, oops. That's why I hate this quote, because there's a whole bunch of oops. And I look at this and I look at myself and I go, oh, man. But I really love it, because when I look at him and I see it, I'm just like, wow. That's just amazing. And hang on, you mean you want to make me like that? Oh, praise God. I don't know how you're going to do it, because I know me. But I sure want it. Well, I got a little bit of idea. That's what we're going to be talking about the rest of the day. But All his works were performed with a quiet dignity and ease, whatever commotion was around him. Applause did not elate him. He feared not the threats of his enemies. He moved amid the world of excitement, of violence and crime as the sun moves above the clouds. Human passions and commotions and trials were beneath him. He sailed like the sun above them all. Yet he was not indifferent to the woes of men. His heart was ever touched with the sufferings and necessities of his brethren, as though he himself was the one afflicted. He had a calm inward joy, a peace which was serene. His will was ever swallowed up in the will of his Father. Not my will, but thine be done, was heard from his pale and quivering lips. Beautiful, beautiful. Now on trial in the high priest's home, one of the officers, filled with wrath as he saw Annas silence, struck Jesus on the face, saying, "Answerest thou the high priest so?" Christ calmly replied, "If I have spoken evil, bear witness of the evil. But if well, why smitest thou me?" He spoke no burning words of retaliation. His calm answer came from a heart sinless, patient, and gentle that would not be provoked. That last phrase, he would not be provoked, the other way we can say it is, he had no buttons. Had no buttons. You could do anything. You could punch him. You could touch him. You could do anything. You could say anything to him. Doesn't matter what you did to him. He never responded with that. No matter how you spilled his bottle over, what came out was good. Because all that was in there was good. Yeah. While the soldiers were doing their fearful work, Jesus prayed for his enemies. "Father, forgive them, for they know not what they do." Father, forgive them. They're crazy. They're crazy. They wouldn't dare even begin to attempt something like this if they knew what they were actually doing. They're crazy. So, Father, I know you know that they're crazy. So be lenient with them, Lord, please. Forgive them. They don't know what they're doing. His mind passed from his own suffering to the sin of his persecutors and the terrible retribution that would be theirs. No curses were called down upon the soldiers who were handling him so roughly. No vengeance was invoked upon the priests and rulers who were gloating over the accomplishment of their purpose. Christ pitied them in their ignorance and guilt. He breathed only a plea for their forgiveness, for they know not what they do. Now, not only is it amazing to us, it was amazing to angels too. With amazement, the angels beheld the infinite love of Jesus, who, suffering the most intense agony of mind and body, thought only of others and encouraged the penitent soul to believe. And in summary of his life, though calumny and persecution were heaped upon him from the cradle to the grave, they called forth from him only the expression of forgiving love. That's all that came out, because that's all that was in there. And he intends to give us the same experience, if we will. If we will. He wants to give us a new heart. And that new heart, when I take first, then I recognize that I'm simply a creature. I'm not God. I'm a child of God. That's the true identity that you and I must have. We've been raised in the false identity that I am God. But no, we are a child of God. We are dependent upon him. We must come first to take. And when I am a child of God, when I'm a creature of his, when I'm dependent upon him, then I'm free. I'm free from others. I don't have to be manipulated. I don't have to control them. I don't have to be, caught up in everything that they're caught up in, because he's my source. He's the one that I take from. He sets me free. And so the solution is not to just improve in the old heart and still remain under that human love of giving to receive, which is selfish and proud and puts myself in the place of God and as a slave to others. But, I just have my slavery a different way. No. God intends for us to have a new heart that's entirely under different principles, that restores us back to what he created us for in the beginning, where our gains are his gains and our losses are his losses. And the heart sees and evaluates everything in harmony with how God sees and evaluates things, so that our obedience of his commandments is natural. Natural. Not forced, Not white-knuckled, not struggling to do so, but natural. That's what he wants for you and I. Anybody want that new heart? Yes. Yeah. Let's pray now for that new heart. Dear Heavenly Father, oh, what an awesome God you are. What a beautiful picture you have given. What a wonderful salvation you are bringing us to. Oh, Lord, and it can save us from far more than what we thought it could. And you are offering to us a new heart with new love that gets to see things from a whole new perspective. And Lord, we want it. We want it. And as we saw last night, you promise it to us in Ezekiel 36, 26, and 27. You said, I will give you a new heart and put a new spirit within you. I'll take that heart of stone out of your flesh and give you a heart of flesh. And I will put my spirit within you, my spirit within you. And you will keep my judgments and do them. Oh, Lord, praise God. We asked for that heart. You said, ask and it will be given to you. Seek and you will find. Knock and it will be open to you. There's a law of asking that you would not give if we did not ask, but you can give when we do ask. To give us the privilege of asking. And so we come now, Lord, and we ask for that heart. And we believe that you give it to us. And we thank you for it now. In Jesus' name, amen.